Welcome to Penny for Your Shots, Conversations and Cocktails with Brilliant Women, the podcast where we uncork the stories and insights of exceptional female leaders from all walks of life. Our goal is to serve up wisdom, tips, and inspiration, and to support each other in rediscovering ourselves and what sets our souls on fire. We'll also share personal memories, paired with friends and a favorite beverage. I'm your host, Penny Fitzgerald, and I believe that the best stories are served up over a glass of wine or a cocktail. So grab a glass, get comfy, and let's pour ourselves into Penny for Your Shots. I was introduced to the writer on the water, Niamh McAnally, through our mutual friend Helen. Niamh's latest book, Following Sunshine, is available today, and I'll include the link to order in my show notes and on social media. Niamh sent me an early copy, and I absolutely loved it. I felt like I was on a trip around the globe to some of the most beautiful places on earth. It's a great read that not only is of a physical journey, but also of self-discovery and personal growth. So many of my guests and students learn and share how being present in the moment is so important to living a fulfilled life. Saying yes to opportunities and not putting off your dreams, regardless of limiting beliefs, learning to ask a better question, and taking steps, even baby steps, towards your goal. These not only make life more fun, but also allow you to grow and serve more people. I'm grateful to share Niamh's journey with you and hope you love the book as much as I did. Check out the show notes to order your copy today. Here is Niamh McAnally. Good morning, Niamh.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Oh my goodness, look at your books behind you. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow, so exciting.
Thank you.
Are you in sunny Southwest Florida in this moment?
We're just back in Southwest Florida. We were traveling from Texas yesterday from our publisher's Author Fest. And so today we're back in Florida on the 12th. Then we're on publication day, which is fantastic.
Lovely. Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yay.
Really good.
Very good. So it'll be available on Amazon, and I'll share that link with everyone.
Perfect.
And
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to begin.
Good
oh
stuff.
my gosh. Well, okay, so I think I was pronouncing your name wrong initially.
Okay.
You get that a lot.
Yeah. Think of your knee and say if. Niamh.
Yeah. Niamh. Yeah. I was the first time we chatted, I had seen some of your videos or some of your interviews on YouTube. And I think someone called you Niamh. So
yeah. Well, actually, technically they do in Ireland. They call me Niamh, and my mother used to call me that sometimes. And I just prefer the F sound. Yeah, but traditionally they can call you Niamh as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were in trouble, is that what you called you?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Actually, she would go through the entire alphabet of the family of the kids' names me last, the other way, and then she's running through the gauntlet, right?
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. You knew. Oh, here, let's go.
Here it comes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay, so you grew up in Ireland,
right?
Yes, and close to Dublin.
Yes, just
in Dublin.
Yeah, in Dublin. Yeah,
lovely. Oh my gosh, yeah. So I read your book and I loved it. Absolutely lovely. I have so many thoughts running through my head. So I have interviewed so many amazing women, and a common thread has run through a lot of them, and the ones who are, well, everyone has found joy. I love that. But the thing that really strikes me is that those who have looked for opportunities and said yes to them throughout the years are most happy, or they are finding a lot of joy in saying yes to things and living with no regrets. And in your book, I find that thread throughout all the stories. I just hear you saying yes to a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remain open. For me, I grew up with the freelance mentality because both my parents were actors. And so variety was kind of normal for us in our house. And, they would get cast in a show for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and they wouldn't necessarily know when the next job was coming, or if it was coming. And so they kind of managed to walk a tightrope financially, but yet they still were able to put a roof over our heads and feed
Mm-hmm.
us. And towards the end of my dad's life, he was suddenly getting major roles in movies and stuff like that. So like the big money was right around the corner before he
Mm.
passed away. But as a result of that growing up, it meant that I was kind of given this permission to look for opportunities, to be open and be aware and know that change happens and we have to be ready to adapt and be flexible. And if you kind of go down a straight and narrow path, and you're not open to other possibilities, you don't know what you're going to miss out on, you
Mm.
know? And so
Right.
so that's why I've ended up in like 4 or 5 different careers over my lifetime. But now, I've kind of settled into my true calling, which is the writer on the water. That's
Yes.
who I am, and I've always written. And so it's lovely to kind of bring all those experiences in together now.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you live in Southwest Florida, but have traveled around the world, and you talk about those experiences in your book. So anyone listening to this, go grab it. It's amazing. The beaches that you've visited, the locations you've been to, what is your favorite? Do you have
Well,
a favorite?
everywhere I am, wherever I'm sleeping at the time is my favorite because that's where I am in the moment, right?
Good, good,
Like
good.
if you
Yes.
go with living in the now, it's always my favorite.
Yes.
Um, well, the book is called Following Sunshine, and it's a voyage around the mind, around the world, around the heart. And the reason for that is when I was 12, my father took us on our first overseas holiday. And growing up in Ireland, it's a beautiful country when the sun shines. But for me, a lot of the time, I remember dark clouds, short days in the winter, rain, etc. And when we went on this holiday to Spain, and I was like, February, and I went, are you kidding me? I did not know that the sun shone in other countries in February. I mean, what's
Uh-huh.
that about, right? So I decided right there and then I'm going to get an atlas for my birthday. And as soon as I'm old enough to travel, I'm going to travel to warm places other people come on
I
vacation.
love it.
And that was kind of my, MO. And that's what started me on my journey. And ironically enough, the first one was in Paris when I left school at 17. I didn't want to go to college in Ireland. And actually, at the time in the 70s, it wasn't the norm. Yes, people go into college, but not everybody. It's not like here in the United States where it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of, a rite of passage. Almost everybody tries to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was like, I want to do something slightly different. We had read a series of essays in school by Cardinal John Newman, which was on the idea of a university. And what he had said at the time was it's a school of knowledge of every kind with teachers and learners from every quarter. And at the time, Ireland was quite a homogenous society. And I thought, I'm not going to experience any diversity going to college here in Ireland. And so I ended up going to Paris and was part of the international school at the Sorbonne University. So I met people from all these countries all over the world. And,
Mm.
and the only thing we had in common was that French was the only language we could communicate in. And as staccato as those parleys were, it was amazing. It was very vibrant and everything. So but part of that, I was a jeune fille au pair, so I was actually living in a family and minding the children as part of my exchange, if you like, for food and
Okay.
lodging.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave me the whole idea of when you travel, I want to live in the community. I don't want to travel as a tourist, right? Because it's a
Mm-hmm.
totally different experience, right?
Right.
So, and that's where that sort of began my whole concept behind volunteer travel. And the first major one I did was in 1993 in Belize, where I was working on a coral reef
Mm-hmm.
project. Because I
Yes.
used to be, I was a scuba instructor at the time, and to me, I have to be either on, in, or under the ocean. Those are anything
I
got to do with
love it.
water, anything to do with
Yeah.
water. And so that kind of started it, if you like. And from then on, it was like, I got to keep going to all these places. And for me, the Mecca was always going to be Bora Bora
Mm.
because it's just so iconic and just the
Mm-hmm.
pictures and the colors of that water is like, oh, I really want to go there. And I'm a real believer in manifestation
Yes.
and visualization and
Mm-hmm.
sticking some pictures up on your wall, of things you want to create for your life. And I had a picture of Bora Bora and also the Northern Lights. And I said, I
Yes.
really want to do that. And I had been working on an island called Sark in the Channel Islands in the UK, working in the
Not the
hospitality
same.
industry. Not the same at all.
No, no,
Like a
not
three,
the
three and a
beach.
half
Yeah.
miles long, a mile and a half with big rugged cliffs and everything else, but
Yeah.
absolutely idyllic. I absolutely loved it
Mm.
there. But at the end of 2015, oh no, so the end of 2014, I beg your pardon, they closed that hotel that I was working for the year.
Hmm.
And I took off then as a year to try and circumnavigate. I'd always wanted to do that. And I was doing all these various projects down in South Pacific, Vanuatu and Fiji and Tonga, etc. And I thought, you know what? This is my third time down in the South Pacific. How long am I going to be able to make these long haul trips? And I'd been putting off Bora Bora for two reasons. One, it's expensive.
Hmm.
Number two, it's the honeymoon capital of the world.
Yeah.
And I was single and I
Hmm.
wasn't rich. So I thought, how's this going to work out? Right.
Right.
But I suddenly thought, you can't keep putting off a dream. I was waiting for some fantasy lover in some fantasy date
Mm.
going to whisk me away to Bora Bora. It was going to be
Hmm.
amazing, right?
Like
I
we see
thought,
in the movies. Yeah.
right, exactly. And I thought, you've got to create your own reality some of the
Yeah.
times. So I found a way by finding a lady called Mama Gloria, and she had this little pension on Vaitapi, the main island inside the Bora Bora Lagoon. And she had little studios you could rent. I got food from the local supermarkets and the rolling trucks, the little food
Yeah.
trucks. And I went for what the equivalent was 8 days in Bora Bora, what would have been one night's fee in one of the
Oh,
overwater
wow.
bungalows. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Ah,
And
yeah.
and the big splurge I did was I called up one of the big resorts and I said to them, could I come for lunch? Because Mama Gloria knew the local situation. And she
You
said,
gotta, it's good to
you got
have
to get in,
friends. Yeah.
right? And this is why you
Exactly.
learn more from being in the locale, mixing with the local people. And she
Hmm.
said, here's what you do. She said, rent or call them up and ask to come for lunch. Because she says they'll give you a day pass to the resort. And I'm like, okay. Now, not only did they give me a day pass to the resort, they came to get me. So I got on one of their like monogrammed tenders all the way across the
Nice.
lagoon and
Oh,
into the place. And when I went to the reception desk, the girl said to me, I was laughing so hard. She goes, yes, you have your lunch and you can use the whole resort and you can go kayaking all out into the lagoon. But the only thing I'm so sorry you can't use is the swimming pool because it's reserved for our residents. And I was like,
no
hello.
problem.
Have you seen the lagoon right past the thing? I mean, it's the
Right. It's
biggest
so
swimming pool in the
beautiful.
world.
Yes.
So and after it was over, oh yes, so the funny part was I was on that beach, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was having the lunch and I thought, Niamh, you could have missed out on this because of your fear of, walking on the beach with all these couples and you're single and it's going to rub it in or you can't afford it. But here's the thing. I was on the beach. There was nobody there because guess what I've forgotten? All the honeymooners were back in their bungalows honeymooning, right?
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
never,
You had it to
never,
yourself.
never put off a dream. Never put
Oh,
off a dream.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's such a good lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that law of reception too, being able to receive it too. Because you
Mhm.
talked in your book a little bit about self-sabotage and how fear holds us back, but our nervous system is trying to keep us safe, and how you worked through all of that. That's fascinating as well.
Yeah, I think fear of the unknown is what cripples us
Mm-hmm.
from not embracing, and taking the courage to take that step. Yeah, it might not work out, but
Mm-hmm.
it might also work out,
Right. What's
and
the worst that can happen?
what's the worst that can happen? You can turn
Yeah.
around and change your mind,
Right.
and that's something for me that what I've learned in all my travels is that you might go in expecting A and come out with B instead.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There was one trip I made, which was actually a side trip in Laos, and it was a 3 day triathlon kind of an adventure. It was one day cycling, one day hiking the mountain, and another day coming down the Mekong River by kayak. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. And I was mid to late 50s, I think, at the time. And there was two other people on this trip, and they were like school kids, like college age,
Yeah.
and it was grand. The bike riding was okay, but we got into the climbing part up the mountain, and I realized, you know what? No, you're way out of your depth in this one. Like I
Yeah.
literally couldn't do it. And the kids were like halfway up the mountain and I was like falling behind. And eventually, there was only, because it was a small group, there was only one leader. And he sort of said, well, we can either cut it short to try to get to the homestay before dark, or I forget what the other option was. Oh, we could go up and over the hill, but he didn't think I could make it. And the kids were, well, we can cut it short. And I said, that's not fair to you guys, just because I'm not
Mm.
keeping up. And I said to him, well, is there any other option? Because sometimes you just have to think outside,
Right.
what is in front of you. And I said, is there
Hmm.
any other option? And he said, well, normally when we have a bigger group, we have two guides and we could split up. And I went, oh, okay. So he picks up his phone in the middle of the jungle mountain, wherever we were. How he got any reception, I don't know. He makes the phone call, comes around to me, and he says, if we get somebody to come get you. And I said, okay, that's great. He says, but you have to pay him. I said, that's fine, And so the
Hmm.
others went up the mountain. I sat down and I waited and I waited and waited. And I thought, oh my God,
And
I'm in
you're
the
by
middle of no, I'm
yourself, right? I
totally
mean,
by
completely
myself
in the jungle.
in the jungle on the mountain by myself. And I was thinking, should I go? But I don't know where I'm going. I'll go walk around this forest and for, circles for hours. I said,
Was
better
there
just,
a pathway? Was there
well,
a trail?
there kind of was a trail up, but it's funny. I went in to follow the leader mode that day. I wasn't paying any attention. I was just following the leader, following the
Mm.
leader. Normally, I'm pretty decent at directions outdoors and I can kind of sense where's the sun, what angle are we
Hmm.
going at, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But I wasn't paying any attention. And so I thought, well, I better not wander around too much because I really don't know what I'm doing here.
Hmm.
Sure enough, it was about 90 minutes later. This man appeared out of nowhere, just in front of me, turned on his heels and walked away. And I went, is he my guide? Is he? Well, he's going somewhere, and
He's
where
not
I'm
going
at,
home.
he's not going home, right? He's in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, well, maybe I should follow him. I don't know. So
Oh
I thought,
gosh.
well, even if he's not my guide, he's going somewhere, and I'm
Yeah.
nowhere right now. So I
Yeah.
followed him anyway. But bottom line was, I got down to the river and I followed past, with him, and he had this guy was waiting with a boat, and I ended up going down on this section of the river that I never would have gone on,
Mm.
and there was like elephants like just washing their backs in the middle of the river. There was the most
Oh
beautiful
wow.
scenery, like with the golden reeds up to the like purple mountains, and I thought, this is actually turning out to be Plan B. It wasn't what I expected, but
Hmm.
I'm actually being rewarded with, having faith to try something
Hmm.
and then change direction when it didn't work out.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
there was a place in the book. I don't remember which country you were in, but you knew after day one that it didn't feel right, and you had the courage to say, "No, I'm changing paths here," and went, I think, on to the next thing. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there was actually two times that happened to me. One was in Malaysia, and I was coming to volunteer for a family business that ran one of these sunset charter boats. And
Yes.
it was, they had guests come on and take them out for a sunset cruise. And because of my background in the hospitality industry and in restaurants and stuff like that, I used to teach food safety. And what I saw here was on the first day I arrived, they were making coleslaw. They told me, okay, make the coleslaw. And
Oh
then
no.
this guy with like a cigarette dangling from his mouth
Oh
and
no.
no gloves on his hands, sticking his hands into the mayonnaise, mixing up the cole. This is how you do it. And no, you're not allowed to wash your hands because we don't have water on the boat to do that, or we don't have
Oh.
enough. And I'm thinking, okay. And then and then I had to stay for that particular one because I just got off a plane having flown I don't know how many hours. And then the guests started eating these like shrimp and crab and all
Oh
this kind
my
of stuff
God.
in the beating heat. And then they wouldn't let
Oh,
me bring it down below after they went for a swim. They
right.
said, no, they're going to
Oh.
want to eat it again when they get back. And I'm like, holy smack, these guys are going to get food poisoning. And then
Hmm.
and then later, that's what the volunteers, they got to eat the leftovers. And I was so
Oh,
hungry and so thirsty. I said, I think I'll pass.
yeah.
And I went to sleep that night and I thought, you know what? This whole thing of the serenity prayer, God help give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to
Right.
change the things I can, and the
Uh-huh.
wisdom to know the difference. And I was like, I could change these things, if I was here over a long period of time. I'm
Yeah.
not. This was a shorter trip. It was only like 3 weeks. Encouraged to change the things that I can, and then
Mm-hmm.
accept the things I can't, and I knew I couldn't. And it's that fine line between knowing the wisdom of knowing the difference between
Yeah.
those two. And I suddenly thought, this is not right for me because I won't be able to follow their guidelines, let's say. But morally, I was kind of like, oh, I should stay. I said I was going to stay. And then ethically, I was saying I can't.
Mm.
So it was a bit of a war going on in my head.
Yeah.
And in the end, I
Well,
decided to step away.
yeah. And that particular scenario or situation was not, I mean, you were doing this volunteer work around the world and helping other people. This was more of an exploitation, I believe. It felt very much like that to me reading it.
That was my feeling too. And that was the other reason I thought it was best to walk away too.
Free labor for them.
Right. I mean, it was a tried and true, like, hospitality business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, they did two things. One, they were abusing volunteers who were coming in the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of cultural exchange and, helping out situations. But number two, by using volunteers, they were actually denying a local a job.
Right.
Who
That
could be
too.
employing somebody else to actually
Mm-hmm.
do the job, even if they were paying minimum wage or something,
Mm-hmm.
So for all of those reasons, I chose to turn around and walk away. And I had been working a lot. I'd been working in hospitality, like, 16 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week sometimes. And this was supposed to be like a 3 week vacation. And I thought, you know what? I'm actually going to give myself a little vacation now. And I completely changed tack, and I ended up taking a ferry ride up to another island, which actually turned out to be in Thailand. And I went scuba diving
Nice.
for myself without having to teach and have students. And I actually
Mm-hmm.
took some time to stand back and reflect before I kind of got back into full time again.
Yeah. You would have needed a vacation from that vacation.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there was another time when I think you were helping someone, trying to remember the exact scenario, but you were helping a family out, I believe, and you had to leave as well, or felt like you needed to leave. You made the choice to
There
go
was
on to the next thing.
Yeah, well, there was one in Vietnam where
Yes.
I was supposed to be teaching English to students, and they had a ton of volunteers, in fairness. And somebody had told me, you're going to love Vietnam, you're going to
Right.
love the atmosphere in Hanoi and everything else. And I was thinking, one lesson I learned there, when somebody gives you a recommendation, you got to consider the source. What are their tastes? What are they into? And so this
Mhm.
girl said to me, oh, because she was a big traveler. She said, you're going to love it. And it's so atmospheric. You got to go into the old quarter. You got to go downtown. And I went, okay. I got there. And for me, it was an aural nightmare. The screeching of the horns and the hooters and the bells and the noise. I couldn't
Mhm.
handle the
Constant,
noise.
right?
Just constant noise,
Mhm.
you know. I just couldn't stay. I literally couldn't stay. It was doing my head in.
Mhm.
And somebody said to me later on, they said, you might have is it like a more sensitive personality? Like I know one time I was looking at getting a house and it was near one of these power lines.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I just couldn't, I
You
literally
feel
would,
it.
I just felt it,
Mhm.
And I remember one time we went to a shop, I think it was one of the big sports shops, and there was these neon lights above and they were flickering and they were
Oh,
also putting out that hum, that kind of
yep.
hum that the,
I
the
do.
fluorescent lights do. And also they had a fan directly below the light. So it had that kind of
Oh, yeah, that.
flickering going on.
Mhm.
So there was a guy standing right underneath it, and he was the cashier. And I said to him, how do you do it? How do you do it all day, with that constantly in your face? And he goes, well, I didn't notice it until you said it. And I went, uh-oh.
Now you're not going to unsee
Now
it.
you're not going to unsee it or unknown. I felt really bad afterwards, because
Mhm.
they were able to tune it out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's those kind of things. I'm very aware of my environment, sounds, light, everything like that. So I do
Mhm.
find that kind of intrusive, and I recognize that in myself. It's different. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just different. It's just who I am.
Mhm.
And so I know I'm not going to be my best in those situations, and I'm not going to be of service to somebody else if I stay.
Mm.
And
Right.
that's where I have to make the ultimate decision to say,
Mhm.
no, this is not right for me. And therefore, me in this situation is not right for you. So I
That's
have to pass.
great.
Yeah.
That was another theme in your book is ask a better question,
Mm.
throughout.
Yes, I think Um, what there was a period in my life where I needed to make a decision and I wasn't making it. I kept putting it off, if you like. And
Mm-hmm.
my dad had taught me one thing, one expression he used to use, which was when you know something, you can't not know it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I learned was you can know it, but you can ignore it, right?
Right. Right.
Which I did. I would suppress whatever the issue was. I'd say, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is not right for me. I know that I need to move on. And this was like in a relationship. I know I need to move on, but I'm not ready. I need to know I've tried everything, that this is, absolutely the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was meeting with a really phenomenal therapist girl who's a counselor for marriages and relationships. And she said, if I'm not telling you what your decision should be, but she said, if this is your decision, why wait one more day to be happy?
Yes.
And for me, that was like a key to unlock, the jail I had put myself in, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everything it is, like something terrible happens, like, okay, so for instance, let's say you miss your plane,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like you can look at that and say, okay, why did that happen? Why is this happening to me? And why isn't the airline doing this for me, etc. Or you can ask a better question. Well, what is the other thing that apparently is going to happen in lieu of this? Where's the gift in this, or where's the lesson in this? What can I learn from this? So if you can turn things upside down and look at it from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time I was in bed. This is way back when I had a house in Florida, and I had a neighbor who used to, at 7 o'clock in the morning, used to run his tractor motor,
Oh,
for the lawnmower
yeah.
thing, right?
Right.
Literally right outside my bedroom. It was done on purpose, which was even more irritating. But yeah, because he didn't like us. But so he would do that first thing on Saturday morning, knowing that was the only morning I could have a little bit of a lie in, right? And I remember waking up and going, my body was immediately starting to tense up into,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
go down that path.
Not a good
And
way to wake up.
not a good way, right? And I
No.
thought, okay, I kind of teach and think about ask a better question. So I thought, what is the better question I could ask myself? And I suddenly thought, okay, who would be really grateful about waking up and hearing that noise this morning, right? And I really
Mm-hmm.
had to think that one out. And then I went, I know somebody who has been deaf their whole life and either had a cochlear implant or some miracle where suddenly they could hear, they would
Mm-hmm.
be thrilled to hear that noise.
Right.
Right. And so it literally gave me goosebumps and it just turned
Mm.
the whole question upside down. And so no matter what befalls me now, I kind of have to stop and go ask a better question.
Mm.
It's not like, why is this happening to me as opposed to why is this happening for me?
Right. Right. Wow. Or what can it bring me? What new opportunity might be around the corner because of that?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And they say that expression, when one door closes, another one
Yes.
opens.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you actually have to close the door yourself,
Right.
you know?
And get over your fear in doing that.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think for me, that's the hard part is like just taking that one step in front of the other and have some courage and just accept and know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and every step you take, I mean, if you have this ultimate goal, desire, dream, whatever that might be, and it seems overwhelming, you take it in those tiny baby steps. What can I
Right.
do today that's going to move me towards that? Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah, and take
Um,
that step that makes you, with one little success, then you start getting more faith and more courage. Wow, I'm okay. I'm safe. And I can then take that next step.
Exactly. There's I don't know if you remember Eckhart Tolle's book, which was had the now in the word. What was it? It'll come back to me in a second. But I remember specifically chapter 3 about living in the now.
Mm,
And I've taken that very much on board. And one time I was going for a skydive in Texas, believe it or not. And I had parachuted as a younger person in Ireland, where a static line. You were tied to the plane, and you
yeah.
jumped out of the plane, and then after 3 seconds, the canopy opened for you, and
Okay.
you came down. excuse me. But this time it was skydiving tandem. So it was going to be like a 40-second
Okay.
free fall, etc. And I'd never done that before. And I thought, I'm going to test this theory out and see about living in the now. Can you really, truly live in the moment and not get fearful about that moment when you're standing, in the doorway of a plane? So I started the process when we went into the hangar and they told us to put on the jumpsuit.
Hmm.
And this is like moments before we're going in the plane, before the jump. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm living in the moment, right now, I am putting on a jumpsuit. I have put on clothes before. There's nothing scary about putting on clothes, right? That's fine.
Well,
Well, yes, unless like they really A, don't fit, or B, they're super ugly or something.
yeah, right,
But
right.
but you know what I mean. So I'm putting on the jumpsuit, and then we start walking. They say, "Okay, guys, it's time," and we started walking out towards the plane. And then, which would normally where you would be thinking you're going to get super anxious, right? And then I went,
Hmm.
I am walking towards a plane. I have done that on countless times. I've flown all over the world. That is not an issue. And now I'm walking up the steps of the plane. Yes, I've done that. Sometimes at this jet bridge, sometimes you're walking across the tarmac and you're going up the plane. Now I'm in a plane and the plane is taking off. Now, granted, there isn't a door on the plane, so that is slightly different. Or if it is, it's open, right?
Yeah.
and and then and then and then that moment where it's like, okay, the engine they put the engine to a stall, and then you're in the gateway or the doorway of the plane. And thinking,
Hmm.
well, I got somebody tied on my back who knows what he's doing, so that's pretty cool, right? And then the jump, and that 40 seconds of free fall, um, in those 40-second moments, which was a long time, by the way, um,
It would be.
it's you're still in the now. You haven't bumped into anything. You're in the air. Nothing is
Yeah.
hurting you. And
Yeah.
really the only moment of any concern per se is, although I'm sure there's skydivers out there telling me, no, there's lots of other moments, but the real moment is that impact with the earth. Like, are you going
Oh,
to land
yeah.
correctly? Right.
Hmm.
And then we landed correctly. Thank you very much. And walked away, and it was that process of staying in the actual moment, second by second by second,
Uh-huh.
and it worked. So I didn't get fearful,
Okay.
you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great tip to apply to anything, but holy cow. I mean,
Yeah,
just
like,
feeling that, what you did, the jump itself.
right. And I think part of where our anxieties and our fears come from is we project our emotions into the future.
Oh,
And we
uh-huh.
try and we start thinking about, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I fail? What if I
Hmm.
succeed? Sometimes that's a big fear
Right.
too for people, to
Hmm.
succeed. So we can definitely take everything from the past, because it's the combination of who we are and our
Hmm.
experiences makes up who we are today. But at the same time, we only are who we are today. And what happens in the future is totally in the unknown. And we can replace fear with excitement. And I think
Mm,
that's a big difference.
right. For sure. So specifically, when you were up there and jumping out of that plane, do you remember looking around the landscape? What did you see?
Um, Green, like basically down, just
It's
like kind of the land coming. It feels like the land is coming up to meet you,
okay.
even though you don't get that sensation of falling. Now, mind you, I do have a photograph of it somewhere, and my face looks like Miss Piggy, because you're falling and your face is like your cheeks are around the other side of your ears or something. You know what I mean? It's
The
not a good
wind.
look. It's not a good look.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. And then I'm thinking, in other regions of the world, there's maybe more to look at. You might be seeing mountains, or you might be, I remember zip lining in Costa Rica, and we were up so high, and in the mountains, and I looked to the side and could see the sea, and it was so beautiful.
That's beautiful. That
It
that's
was
gorgeous.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
remember the guy at the other end, so we're from, one tree to the next. And they were teaching us how to do it. I'd never done it before. And he says, okay, it's like taco, not burrito. When you're hold on to the line loosely, so that you can still keep going. Well, he goes, no, 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 taco, not burrito, no burrito.
That's
He's
brilliant.
stopping myself so I could look at the ocean, but
Yeah.
he didn't want to have to come and get me, which would have happened had I kept, holding on to that
Hold on too
line.
tight. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's a really good metaphor because sometimes we do hold on too tight to things, don't
Right.
we? You know?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Because we want to control the outcome, and that's really not up to us.
Right. The
Yeah.
only thing I've learned now is the only thing I can control is my reaction to things
Yeah.
and how I feel about things and my emotions. That's the only thing I'm in
Hmm.
charge of. Everything, everybody else is in charge of everything else.
Right. Right. And the timing too. I mean, a lot of us, I feel like, the older I get, the more I realize this, that you can't control it and the timing is none of your business. So, you may
Mhm.
want this thing really badly and you may take steps toward it. But you have to, wait on the timing.
Yeah, and the other part of it too, I think, is that it doesn't necessarily come in the package you were expecting.
Right.
I
Right.
remember when I was living on Sark, the next big island over was Guernsey. And because I was so busy at work and I was single at the time, I said to myself, I know what I'd love. I'd love a man with a boat who would come over on the weekends or whatever day I had off and pick me up and we'd go out for dinner and we'd go sail around and come back again. That's what I would like. I didn't know, spool forward, whatever it was, 2 years later, I ended up living on a boat with a man who came to, you know what I mean? I was volunteering on that
Yeah.
trip, and that's how my life changed completely.
Hmm.
So it's almost like I manifested it, but not in the way I thought,
Right.
you know? And
Yeah.
I and you just have to stay open to, oh, there you are. That's who you look like, and that's what you're about, right?
I sometimes think I should be more specific when I'm making my dream board or, thinking of my goals or what I want.
I think you're right to a point. I think you
Yeah.
have to be somewhat specific,
Uh-huh.
um, but not to the point where you will rule out other things that
Right.
might show
Where
up.
you
Do you
miss
know what I
things.
mean? Yeah,
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 absolutely.
yeah. I remember one person talking about, oh, what I really want in my life, I want a man in my life. And then she realized, no, I need to be more specific. I need a kind man in my life. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Because you can get,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so yeah, you definitely have to have some specifics
Yeah.
into the equation, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, be taking those steps to move toward it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And let
Right.
those doors open as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there was something else in your book I was going to, oh, the pictures. You reference a lot of photography in your book. Do you include the pictures in the,
Actually, in Following Sunshine, I don't have pictures in this book. So what we're going to do is like when I do my launches and presentations, I do like a big kind of presentation with
uh-huh.
slideshow and videos and everything else, which will have a lot of the
Oh,
pictures from it.
nice.
And then what we'll do is we'll put that up on the website, which is thewriteronthewater.com. So I'll have a
Okay.
lot of the pictures actually from now on, we'll start to see more and more pictures. There's some there already actually on the gallery, but we'll be putting together a specific set of pictures from Following Sunshine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to
Yeah.
see those because I could,
Yeah.
I hear you reference them and they're, oh my gosh. So they sound beautiful.
Well, it's funny. I was actually looking at some of them this morning. There's a project I did for turtle conservation down in Vanuatu, and one of those situations there was 8 of us all together on that one, and we hadn't met before, but each one of the 8 of us was adopted by a local family, and we had mine was Mama Cecilia, and I had this little sister Fabiana, and there's a photo. I talk a lot about being embraced by that family. And then on the Sunday, all the volunteers had to go to church with them. And they gave us these island dresses to wear. And I remember Fabiana climbing up on my hip, and I didn't realize somebody actually had taken a photograph of that. And it's just
Oh,
that moment. I was
nice.
looking at that this morning. It's absolutely, it crystallizes moments for you, doesn't it?
It
Photography.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you are a photographer
Yes,
as
I take a
well.
lot of photographs and love photography. Absolutely love
Very
it.
cool.
So my background was in television directing,
Yes.
and so the visual medium is huge for me as well as the written medium.
Yeah, nice. And we're talking not just with your phone.
No,
You
no.
have an actual camera that you are that you use.
Yeah, I had a big wide angle lens on and a big zoom lens on a Canon camera. And yet, in fairness to the cell phones nowadays, compared to what they
They're
were, like, oh my
fantastic.
gosh, you can do so much with the cell phone now as well,
Uh-huh.
which is also a little lighter if you're doing a lot of kind of backpack traveling style.
Mm-hmm.
The camera gear to lug around is quite a
All right.
lot,
Yeah.
so it's a lot easier with the cell phones.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can make some gorgeous photographs now.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to see some of those, especially that one and the photo of your hubby
Oh,
jumping for joy in the water with the
the
boat in the
freed spirit
background.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how that came about was at the end of that year, I had been traveling for 12 months and literally had circumnavigated. I always say by plane for the sailors listening. That doesn't it doesn't mean I did it by boat. But I had started in London and then I had made my way from west to east. Yeah. So I headed like St. Bart's first, then down New Zealand, up through the South Pacific Islands, Vanuatu, Fiji, Tonga, French Polynesia, and then back up around Palau, through Asia and back to London. So I had done my year, and it's like everything else. I had put the year on as a nice tidy number, but anyway, so I was deciding I was going to do some work then after that, and I was sending out resumes left, right, and center, and I found one volunteer project that was just to last a month, which was to crew for a solo sailor from Florida to the Bahamas. And I said, oh, that's perfect. I'm going to go do that, which I did. And the thing about living on a sailboat is you're in a 40-foot space, you're living 24/7 with the same human being, and you have no Wi-Fi, usually no cell phone service, no internet. And guess what you do? You
You
talk.
talk.
You just talk. And we talked and talked and talked. And we were from such different backgrounds. He grew up in Los Angeles. He's older than I am. I grew up in Ireland, 5,000 miles apart. What would bring these two people together? And the more we talked, the more we realized we had the fundamentals very much in common. And we had some very deep, profound conversations. And during that time, he helped me negotiate some of the issues I had growing up as a child, some of the encounters I had had, and he helped me to see them from a different perspective and also train my brain into forgiving myself for things that I thought were my fault and they weren't. And we went through a whole set of rituals that, and anyway, so our relationship got very, very deep. And then suddenly this romance blossomed out of it. And so we were best friends before that. I mean, the beginning, I don't think we liked each other that much. I mean, we liked each other, you know what I mean? We had to like each
Yeah.
other, but it
You were
wasn't like,
annoyed a couple of times.
yeah. In fact, I always tell people that the one time we had a row about something, and I had a little bit of an Irish flair temper, if you like, and I stormed off all the way to the bow. And I got to the bow and I went, now where do I go?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was one of the best lessons for me was I literally had to turn around and I said, okay, I gotta resolve what this issue is. And do you know the way sometimes when people have a row, people process things differently. It could be the same event, but we all process things differently. That's what we learned. That I'm one of those people. If I have a row with somebody, I want to fix it immediately. I can't keep going with the niggles underneath and just like,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of angst.
Mm-hmm.
Some people take like 2 or 3 days to brood their way through their issues, right? And Gary
Mm-hmm.
used to be one of those people. And I went, that's not working for me on a boat, Gary. I can't do three
Yeah.
days of this.
I
Like
have
three,
to work side by side with you for 3 days.
I know. So, like, I mean, 3 minutes is like 3 days on a boat. But anyway, so what we did was we worked out this thing, we call it the double fix, but we worked out a system where we could talk again, talk through it till everybody was calm and just say, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Right.
We still know that it's not over because until you have that place in your heart where you're feeling, I've had my say, I feel no emotional attachment, no emotional charge with the issue.
And I understand that you get it now. You get how I
Right.
feel.
Exactly. And vice
Mhm.
versa.
Right.
So, and sometimes you need a time delay between those two stages. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what we learned. And so we would get to a point where we say, okay, and we actually now refer to it even today, like, okay, can we at least get a first fix in? And then what we do is days later or hours later, now it's speeded up. Gary's done an amazing amount of work to speed the thing up. Hours later, or even the next day, say, okay, well, I'm not emotionally charged. I'm not all upset anymore. I'm calm. here's how what you said to me landed on me. Here's how I perceived it. That may not have been what you meant, but this is how it landed on me. And sometimes we learned some of these things can be just trigger words, you
Right.
know? And we also learned that just because we both speak English doesn't mean we both speak the same language
Right.
and same culture. Our
Right.
cultures are very different, American versus Irish. And what growing up for me in Ireland, we had this kind of roundabout way of saying something. And for instance, this particular argument was we were going into dock and he wanted to get fuel. He said we should go in and dock. And I was thinking we shouldn't because the wind is blowing, there's a catamaran in the way, all things is going to go crazy. And we weren't great at docking at that point because I think it's the two hardest things in boating is docking and undocking. Anyway, and it went badly. And afterwards I said to him, no, I said, do we really need fuel? And he says, well, we should always top up, even though we have plenty. And I turned around to him and I said, afterwards, I said, I told you we shouldn't have gone in. I said it was too windy. I said this, I said that. And he goes, no, you didn't. You asked, do we really need fuel? And that's when I realized he's right.
You
know,
dang it.
Exactly. That was the annoying part. So that's when we had to fix that up. But anyway, so once we got to that stage, we came to this part. We said, okay, this is the second fix. From now on, I'm going to speak more directly. I'm going to do my best to unlearn what I've learned over the years in this Irish roundabout way of speaking. And maybe it's not fair to say Irish, but it's the way I've been raised. And he's going to be more open to saying, well, what is your opinion before we do X, Y, Z? And
nice.
so from that, then we says, okay, that's the double fix. And interestingly enough, we never then came across that same version of an argument once we had resolved it.
Nice.
Right. And I think what happens if you just go, oh, okay, I'm sorry, and move on and not really get underneath the layers of it, you don't ever get to that another version of that same argument will show up again until you get it.
Right. Wow. That's really wise.
And like sometimes it could be something like, oh yeah, well, you're loading the dishwasher the wrong way because this is how you're supposed to do it. And then they suddenly go, well, you never liked my mother anyway. And you go, where did that come from?
What?
Right? And again, there's trigger words. Like I'll give you an example. In Ireland, if you say, would you like a cup of tea? The answer might be, I don't mind. I don't mind if I do or don't. Gary would say things like, I don't care. Well, to me, I don't care was much more like, I really don't care. Like, it meant something different. Whereas, so it was just language differences,
right?
Words and some words for me are triggers and some words for him are triggers, and now I recognize that that's what that is. That's all it is. It's just a trigger word from something back in the past.
That had nothing to do with what's in front of you.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, what it does is it brings it up to you and say, okay, maybe this is something in your past you haven't resolved.
Right.
Maybe that's something I need to look at.
Yeah. Again, very wise.
Well, when we get this age, if we haven't come up with some wisdom.
We've learned a couple of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so Niamh, I have to ask you, every episode I ask my guests what is their favorite adult beverage. And some of my guests don't drink, so that's okay too. But what do you like to drink, and what memories can you share over a nice beverage?
My favorite beverage is wine and champagne. Those would be my two.
You are my girl.
Yes, I'm not saying it just because it's you. No, they are my two favorite. When I was a kid, growing up, in the pubs, I had beer in the beginning, but I never drink beer anymore. And I'm not a big one for spirits, but it's wine and bubbles. It would be my two. And do you know what? One time I learned about what it means to me is, why do I find a glass of wine at sunset or in a very ambient, mood lit fine dining experience? Why do I find that so romantic? Because people ask me, why do you like wine? And I eventually figured it out. There was one night after a show, we had done a first night in the Abbey Theatre where I worked back in Ireland. and we went out for dinner to one of the theatrical kind of restaurants. And I was wearing some kind of a red outfit, and behind me was a black and white striped banquette, if you like. And the
Hmm.
person opposite me was the scenic artist. And I was drinking a glass of red wine, and there was a candle in front of it. And I picked it up, and just in that moment, the candle light like illuminated through the glass of wine. And he across the way, he said, I could paint you right now. And it was just that imagery. And that I realized that that is the romantic image I have. And I think you could have the most beautiful glass of wine. I mean, obviously, you know your stuff with wine, but you could have the most amazing glass of wine, and you could be sitting in a cafeteria with fluorescent lights, and it would just lose the magic, you know? And vice versa. You could have a less than fantastic glass of wine in the most beautiful ambient lighting, and it would seem more magical, you know, and taste better.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. And the other thing too, though, like you were saying earlier, you can look for the opportunity there. So maybe it's a Tuesday and you're in a cafeteria.
Well, that's true. That is
And
true.
you can, like, I feel like wine can be celebratory, and especially bubbles.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Love bubbles. But
Absolutely.
yeah, you can use it to elevate any moment.
Hmm.
Just
Absolutely.
celebrate the now, celebrate the current moment right in front of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then if you can add in a nice glass, which is good too, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that does make
That
a
I
difference.
think it makes it. Somehow drinking a glass of wine out of a solo cup or something just doesn't do it for
I
me.
was gonna say that because yeah, I have on occasion had wine in a solo cup. So, when you're camping.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But it's all about how you make the experience.
Exactly. Who you're with, and you could
Right.
be by yourself too, though, and just have a nice glass and celebrate something.
There was one time in Tonga, in the Kingdom
Yeah.
of Tonga, which it's like 170 islands in South Pacific, and I was on the catamaran by myself because it was actually at anchor, and I was watching it, I was minding it because there was a storm coming, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life, which was a moonrise from the horizon in the water. Never seen anything like it in my
Oh.
life before or since. And I had Bette Midler playing in my ears, "Oh Captain Ahab," in the Song of the Sea, and I
Mm.
had a glass of wine, and I was having the moon shine through the glass of red wine. It was
Oh
just
my.
magical,
Oh, I've got goosebumps.
magical moment.
I bet. Wow. You have been some amazing, amazing places.
I've been very blessed to be able to do it. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not like a wealthy woman or anything else like that. Most of the time, what I did was I did it as a volunteer so that I could go places, I could stay places in a family home or, communal kind of a place. And I would work in exchange for food and lodging. And so that helped sort of fund the travels and then use some of my savings for airfares to get around, you know.
Hmm.
And I think one time my nephew said to me, I'm learning geography through your travels.
Right.
I've never heard of this place, and then that became a thing. The more I could find somewhere where nobody's ever heard of, it was like, oh, I want to go there.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, when
Yeah,
I was reading your book, I had, Google Maps at the
yeah, 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 yeah.
time, looking, following your travel.
Actually,
So
somebody
fun.
mentioned that to me the other day about I would have liked to have seen a map in the book. So it's something I'll definitely put up on
Oh,
the website, a
nice.
map of all the different locations. Yeah, that
Uh-huh.
would be a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I had my phone right there. It was like just tracing your path.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking me around the world.
Well, that's it. And that's one of the reasons why I write. People say, well, why do you write? From early on, when I would write letters home from any of my travels, people say, I felt like I was there.
Yes.
And we're not all going to be able to do all kind of things. Like I'm never going to climb Mount Everest. That's just a given. That's just not happening ever. Never was going to happen and never will happen
Hmm.
now, right? But if somebody writes about their experience there, I feel like I have journeyed there myself, and
Hmm.
that's my goal is to share travels, not look, oh, look where I've been, but no, to bring somebody along to experience the same things I got the privilege to experience.
Hmm. Exactly. Well, mission accomplished.
Yeah, good, 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 good. And
Yeah.
also to try and give people the inspiration to do whatever it is they wanted. I know we've coined this phrase like bucket lists, right?
Hmm.
Um, yes, but at the same time, you got to tick things off it. Just don't all shove
Hmm.
it in the bucket and say, "Well, it's on my bucket list," right? You like tick them off one at a time.
Hmm.
Um, and be open to what's coming your way.
Mhm.
Dream about it, think about it. The more you do all of that, I certainly believe you can manifest stuff.
Yes.
And I do think in terms of the secret, remember the whole thing about the secret law of
Yeah.
attraction.
Yeah.
You do also need to take action.
Yes.
So you've got to take those things we were talking about, those
Exactly.
little baby steps to make that happen. And
Exactly.
one time, one guy, I've always wanted to work at sea, and one guy said to me, "So, well, what do you need to do in order to make that happen?" I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Well, you should find out." Oh,
That
and
makes sense.
I found out, and one of the things was a particular safety course for seafarers and mariners and that kind of thing, which was
Uh-huh.
a prerequisite to get onto the yachting industry, like the mega yachts and get work on
Yeah.
those boats.
Mhm.
And so I did it, but unfortunately at the time I was a little old. They didn't like older people. They like the young people. I couldn't get hired. And the guy said, what's wrong with you? You're over 20. And I said, oh, yeah. And he says, and number two, you're over 20. Oh, and by the way, number three, you're over 20. I went, okay, I got the picture. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was another opportunity. I didn't get to work on the mega yachts, but I ended up living and working on a sailboat for 6 years, cruising
Hmm.
up and down the Caribbean and the Bahamas.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
you know,
Wow.
you can make things
Consolation
happen.
prize.
Oh, yeah. Better than the original prize, let me tell you.
Exactly.
Much
Yeah.
better. Yeah. Yeah.
You never know.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Niamh, this has been so fun.
You
I
too. It's
appreciate
lovely
getting to
chatting
know
with
you.
you.
Yes, I can't wait. Okay, so you are super close to my friend Helen, right? You're in the kind of in the neighborhood.
In the same area. Yes.
Very nice. Well, I'm sure I will be meeting you in person and sharing a glass of wine.
For sure. For sure.
Oh,
For sure.
so lovely. Well, what else? What else can I do for you for your launch?
Well, today is the day we're launching,
Mm-hmm.
September 12th, and we are going to be doing all sorts of presentations around Florida, and also I'm going to be doing stuff online. The main thing is if book clubs choose the book,
Mm-hmm.
I will give presentations either by Zoom I'll drop into their
Uh-huh.
meetings so they can ask questions directly. And also I do them in person here in Southwest Florida, or if it's somewhere that I'll be traveling to.
Uh-huh.
Um, the biggest thing anybody can do for any author anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter whether they're super prolific writers and they have loads of books out and they're a well-known name, or they're starting out, is to review their books on Amazon, online, on Goodreads, BookBub, all of these places, because a lot of these platforms use an algorithm to see a book. And the more reviews there are, the more the algorithm says, oh, there's something happening over here. Let's have a look at that book. And then they start to move it around and you start to see it popping up in various places. So that's the biggest thing any reader can do for an author, is to review the book online.
Nice. Well, I
Yeah.
will make sure that I put the links in my show notes and on social media so that people can find it easily.
Thank
It's a
you.
great read.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a process to write it, because I kind of lay bare my soul.
Yeah,
It's all out there
it's
for
very
everybody to
personal.
see. It's very
Yeah,
personal, and it's not just about traveling. It's there's the inner journey as well as the outer journey.
right, right.
Yeah,
Which, yeah,
yeah,
for me is just right in line with what I do, is trying to help people find their better,
yeah.
their
Absolutely.
next.
And
Hmm.
that's what you do. And this podcast has been wonderful. You've had some amazing women on here. It's been
Oh,
wonderful to listen to.
thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for listening.
No, I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's interesting because like any of us creators, like reviewing the book, reviewing the podcast. So anyone listening out there, go do both, please.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yeah. And obviously,
Wonderful.
when I do podcasts with people, I love to share them on my social media as well. So that'll be
Nice.
lovely. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody can find me on thewriteronthewater.com. It's kind of
Mhm.
easy. We didn't go with my name because nobody'd ever spell it correctly. And they'd be
It
like,
took me a bit to figure that one out. Yeah, or
they
to
disappear
remember
into
it.
the internet and never be seen ever again. So the website is thewriteronthewater.com. And then of course I'm on, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn and all the usual social media channels.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, thank you again, Niamh. It's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be
Thank you.
amazing. It's going to be
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. We're really working hard on this one. We had I didn't tell you that in when we launched Flares Up
Yeah.
which is the story about the two men who rowed across the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
We launched it in the UK and Ireland because it was, they're from the UK, and also it was a UK publisher. And we're doing the launch in Dublin, and I'm on stage, and Jeremy Irons was coming over to co-host the launch with me, and he arrived a little bit late because he was coming in by boat, literally the ferry, and he gets up on stage and he announces that the Queen has just died, literally while we're on stage. And so of course
Oh.
all of England went into a 10-day media blackout period. There was nothing at
Oh.
all being done, and so there was zero PR for the book.
Upstaged by the Queen.
Completely, yeah, completely, right. And so this year, Gary
Oh.
says to me, "Okay, we're going to get a proper PR team behind this." So we actually have a publicity campaign running at the moment. So they'll be doing a lot of work, over the next 2
Yeah.
months to
Wow.
getting the word out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, and that's interesting. That's another thing that I neglected to ask you that I can plug into the book or into our podcast episode a bit. You are acquainted with, friends with Liam Neeson and Jeremy Irons, correct?
Yes, years and years ago in 1985, we were making the movie The Mission down in South America, and my dad was cast in it, and it was a Robert De Niro, Jeremy Irons movie. And I originally went out to talk about being open for possibilities. I originally went out to accompany him and work with him on his lines and everything else. When I got there, the producers realized that I had a skill set in canoeing and a bit of rock climbing, etc. So I got hired on as the stunt assistant on the movie. So that's where I met Jeremy and I met Liam. In fact, I was very blessed. I got a chance to work with Liam in one of the dugout canoes because he had to learn how to paddle the canoe and stuff. So I worked with him for a little bit. And so, yeah, so they've been very generous in, endorsing the book as well. So it's
Oh,
been very
nice.
lovely. Yeah.
It's good to have friends.
Oh my goodness. I tell you what, there's two very generous people, kind.
Yeah.
And my dad used to say, the bigger the star, the more gracious they are. And I have
Oh.
found that to be true. I have found the middle group, if you like, who are almost famous or just famous. They're
Uh-huh.
kind of like, oh no, I'm too important now. You
Oh
know what I
gosh.
mean? But
Mm.
the big A-listers are probably some
Mm-hmm.
of the most generous, kind people, knowing they know where they started. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're always willing to look back and reach out and, bring you along. And so
Yeah.
both of those
Well,
men have been wonderful.
and I feel like your energy is what attracts more of the same to you. So someone with a kind, generous heart is, giving, and those are the people you meet, are the kind, giving people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is you know that story about the guy who comes down the mountain and comes into the village and he goes, "What are the people like here?" And the sentry kind of guy sits on a rock and he looks and he says, "Well, what were your people like in the last village?" "Oh, they were amazing. They were wonderful. They were this. They were kind, etc." He goes, "Well, so you'll find them here." And then next time he comes down and he asks, "What are the people like here?" And the guy says, "What were they like in your last village?" He goes, "Oh, they were mean. They were horrible, and they were never nice to anybody. So you will find them here."
Hmm. Yeah.
You
Look
know,
inward. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. What you bring to your
Wow.
day is the important part, and how you show up in the world is super important.
Exactly. Oh gosh. Yeah. I hear that over and over and over again. I'm learning so much from my amazing friends.
Yeah, as we do, we all share and we all learn from each other. It's
That's
amazing.
right. That's
Yeah,
right. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, Niamh, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing all of your stories with us, and thank you for producing such a beautiful book. It's
thank you
wonderful.
very much for having me. I really enjoyed our time together.
Yeah, me too. Okay. All right. I will look forward to seeing you in person and celebrating over a toast.
For sure, for sure. I'm sorry I can't come out to Texas because I'll have been and I'll just be back for
Oh,
your
for
wine
our
camp. I
wine camp,
know.
right?
Yeah, I would have
Yeah.
done that. Only it's just not going to work with our time frames.
Right, right. It's right
Yeah,
in the middle. Yeah,
right
or
in the
right
middle. We have to
after.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I get it, but we'll celebrate some other time.
You'll have fun. You'll have fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Penny. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Will do. All
Okay.
right. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap on another spirited episode of Penny for Your Shots, conversations and cocktails with brilliant women. I hope you've enjoyed the intoxicating blend of wisdom, wit, and wonder that these incredible women bring to the table. Check out the show notes for links to resources referenced in today's episode. And remember to subscribe and raise a glass with me every Thirsty Thursday as we continue to serve up inspiration, celebrate resilience, and reignite the passions that set our souls on fire. If you've loved what you've heard, please share the podcast far and wide and leave a sparkling 5-star review to let me know your thoughts. It would also help tremendously if you would visit pennyforyourshots.com and subscribe to learn when new episodes are available and pick up my free recipe. In the meantime, remember that your story deserves to be served and savored. Cheers to your brilliance and of women everywhere. Until next time, keep sipping and experiencing life's extraordinary moments. This is Penny for Your Shots, signing off with a clink and a toast to us. Cheers.